Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on online resources for teaching geography. While I might be talking mainly about geography simply because that's my bias, any of these can be used to teach anything in social science, even in life skills, because social sciences are life skills. So let's get started then and then work our way through what I have to offer today. What I'll do is I'll take you through a few background details, and then I'll take you to one particular site from where you can access a lot of information. So you don't have to remember or even note down a whole lot of web addresses and so on. You can actually just go to one site and from there just go and search. So let me start with sharing the screen here. Just one moment. Okay, so I'm representing two organizations which are collaborating in this series, the Institute of Geographical Studies and its sister organization in the US called Dharani USA. Let me begin with thanks to my two geography gurus, two of many geography gurus, some of whom are very young children even now. These are the two people who allowed me to imagine a better definition of the word geography and then build my understanding and practice of geography on the basis of that understanding that they helped me find. So a very quick note about myself. I'm a native of Bengaluru with a BSc in Chemistry, Botany, Zoology from Bangalore University, MS in Environmental Studies, and my PhD is in Geography at Kent State University. As you can see, I'm advertising my alma mater. And I founded the Institute of Geographical Studies in 2000. Since then, I've been working in geography education, particularly for school children. The organization, please excuse me, every now and then we'll be getting these little pings, people wanting to join the meeting, which means I have to stop sharing the screen, otherwise I can't do that, I think. Oh yeah, I can do it now, no problem. All right, so I've been working through this organization, and we deliver non-formal, not informal, not formal, it is non-formal geography education through non-traditional means. We don't use textbooks. We use life experiences to help children connect with geography and connect geography with their lives. We have various activities, workshops, lectures, field trips, online classes. We also have an annual conference that we hold that is specifically geared for school children, ages 13 and above. And now we have started a new effort by way of these webinars, thanks to our friend coronavirus. So let me begin with some background on the working definition of geography that I use and that at TIGS we all use. The reason for this is without that understanding, it may not make sense to you as to why a particular item I might show you is related to geography. So for that reason, I'll give you a little bit of background on it. The old definition, the definition that we all were raised on, myself included, was this geography. You break the word down into its Greek origin words. Gaia, from which we get geo, meaning earth. Graphos, from which we get graphy, meaning description, actually, not study. We were always told it's study. It is not so. Geology is the science of earth. Geography is the description of earth, which is a very narrow and outdated, outmoded definition. So I use this definition that geography is the study of how things are organized and connected on the surface of earth. Those connections are extremely important, and that's what ultimately makes geography a very interesting discipline to be studying. And while I'm here, let me also make a quick distinction between subject and discipline. Subject is what we study in a textbook, is kind of not connected with us particularly. But when we live something, we're able to see that subject throughout our lives, all around us, then it becomes a discipline, because it also gives us a way of organizing our knowledge about the world, as well as a way of interacting with the world and shaping the world in different ways. So therefore, at TIGS we look at geography not as a subject, but as a discipline. If we were to look at it as a textbook, as a subject, we would be teaching in schools. Schools teach the subject of geography, not the discipline. So the resources I'm going to be showing you today, those resources will help you teach geography as a discipline in the context of the classroom, and the only limit will be your own creativity, because I know education systems and so on impose a lot of restrictions, time restrictions and other things on teachers and students as well. Okay, so every discipline has its own set of core questions. Chemistry, for example, talks about how atoms and molecules and so forth interact with each other, and so on. Geography has 4 questions that it addresses, and these 4 questions, if you can get a good handle on these 4 questions and apply them to anything, if you're able to understand the answers to these 4 questions, you understand the geography of that topic. And incidentally, please don't bother writing all this down. I have already provided PDF copies of this presentation online. I'll show you where it is later on. Okay. So the first question that geography begins with is, where is it? This is basically a preposition question. The location is where we start. Geography is fundamentally about location. And then we ask its antecedents. It is somewhere, something is somewhere, then why is it there? So currently we are all dealing with this whole big issue of the pandemic, COVID-19. And we see COVID-19 all over the place in so many different countries in the world. Why is it there? We say it started in Wuhan, China. Why? These are actually answerable questions. At least we can speculate. And then the third question that geography asks is, what are the consequences of something being where it is? So if we say the COVID-19 disease started in Wuhan, China, so what? Well, so what is Wuhan is connected internationally by jet flights, and lots of people from different parts of the world have been traveling to and from Wuhan. That is the consequence now that we see the spread of COVID throughout the world. So the fourth question that geography asks is, what if something were to be different? And this question helps us to plan, it helps us to respond, it helps us to devise different kinds of scenarios that we can live in. So now the what if question is, what if we stop people from moving around? That is where we get the lockdowns. So what if we keep people from moving around and interacting with others and will that stem the the spread of coronavirus? We are yet to find out, because we still don't have the proper data for it. But that is, it comes from that question of what if. So today what I'm going to be showing you, the content I'm going to show you are 4 kinds: websites, websites which are interactive, which have non-interactive elements, and other video sources where you can get information from there and use it for your teaching. Particularly now, since we are most of India is under lockdown and most of the classes are going on online, these are very easily accessible resources. All of these are online. All of these are in the public domain. I have only collected resources, and I have had help from one of my students in compiling this list. We have compiled this list based on one important criterion, that should be free. They should not demand money from you. So these are all free resources available openly online. They are in the public domain. However, there are some other issues that you should consider, and that is the ethics of using whatever these resources are. Whenever you use them, please be sure to acknowledge the source of the information, share those with your students as well, and impress upon them the importance of acknowledging where the information has come from. This is important both for personal psychological reasons, in terms of acknowledging the fact that we are all connected through our, but at the same time also to teach children the importance of having ethics in academia. If we do not cite our sources, we are stealing information. That is called plagiarism, and that is the cardinal sin of academic effort. So this is something that you can use to instill the ethic of information use as well. And the ethics are also what make a subject a discipline. In teaching geography in the classroom, we don't look at these things. But when you look at the ethics of how to use information, how information can be used for good or for bad, to harm people or to help people, as we are seeing every day with this coronavirus breakout. So it's useful to be able to teach, here's geography, the knowledge of which can be an instrument for helping people. It can also be an instrument to hurt people. Which one will we choose and why? Therefore, the ethics of the discipline are very important, and it's good to impress upon children these values. They're very keen to this. I can tell you from experience that I have seen students with absolutely no prompting. I say, oh, that's very interesting. Instantly, they will tell me where they got the information from. Instantly. And it happened as recently as 2 days ago. So it's a very important thing. It also helps them feel better connected with the rest of the world, intellectually at least. So this is the site we are going to go to. This is all on in your invitation, of course. So by all means, if you want to write this address down, feel free. You don't have to. But this is the address at which we are going to look at one resource base from where you can access so many different things. So this is the website of the Institute of Geographical Studies, which I mentioned earlier. Please explore it at your leisure. Just poke around. Just explore the site. Look for all the things that you can find there. The one thing I cannot emphasize is that anything in the hands of an imaginative and creative teacher is a teaching resource. What we have listed here in our database is nothing compared to what is available out there. So you don't have to look only to these resources. There are many, many resources you can use from your own daily life that could be useful resources for teaching. You can also reach me if you have any questions or if you need some help. You're welcome to write to me at this email address that I've highlighted, geoethics.in. And I'll do my best to help in any way I can. Okay. So with that, let me close down the slide set, and we'll go to look at, look at the actual site itself, from where we will be accessing the resource base for our work today. So this is the home page of the Institute of Geographical Studies. And just give me a moment. I'm trying to move this away somewhere it doesn't interfere. All right. So up at the very top, I'll give you a very brief tour of the home page because that's a useful place to start. Up at the very top, There are a series of links here. This is a link to various geography puzzles that we have been posting online of varying degrees of difficulty for varying age groups. But nowhere do we follow any textbook. We don't do that. There are lots of people working with textbooks and curriculums and so on. That is not our interest. Our interest is to actually teach geography rather than getting children worked up about getting marks in geography. We want to make it a joyous learning experience. And this is the link to our annual geography conference, about which I'll tell you a little later on towards the end of our presentation today. This is a link to the blog, which is something you should explore. It has a lot of essays there that some of them might be useful for your teaching. In whatever way they're useful for your teaching, please feel free to use them. There is no copyright issue on these things. We are also soon going to be starting a guest blog, particularly for students, young children who want to write geography essays from their own personal lives, and we will post them here. After helping them write well, we will post them here. That is coming in the next few months. We also have a Tamil blog, Valaipadivu, which at the moment is not very well populated, but we are hoping to add more blogs to that. So if you write in Tamil on geography topics, you're welcome to write for Valaipadivu as well. Likewise, Kannada Lekhanagalu for blogs in Kannada. There again, there are only a few of them. So we hope to include them as well. This is the link we'll be looking at today. Online resources, we'll come back to that. We also offer some courses online. One is called Geography Over Distance, which is an online course for geography interested students. We also are starting a course on the 30th of June called The Power of Place. This is exclusively for children studying at a Montessori center in Chennai called Cascade Family Learning Services. So that is starting on the 20th. Apart from that, we have the webinars. We have a project that we are working on right now. About 7 children are working on a document on making a documentary connecting Karnataka Sangeetam or Carnatic music with geography. So we're hoping to finish that project sometime in the next year or so. And there is also just hang on this. I'm sorry for this interruption. I forgot to lock the room. I have people wanting to get in. Just give me a moment. I'll leave it open because some people seem to have difficulty joining the room. All right. So then we have published a book called Geography Everywhere. It is now available as an e-book online. You can buy that if you like. And that information is given here. There's also information about how to be an intern or a volunteer at TICS. So with that background in mind, let's take a look at our online resources page. And I've got many of these pages already open in order to save time. I'm sorry this is getting a little monotonous and boring. I see some people yawning. So, okay, on this online resources, there is some background information here. And then hopefully it will load the database. Trying to save time online is always counterproductive. It ends up taking more time. Okay, so when you go to the online resources link, this is the page you come to. It says online resources at the heading. There is some background information text there. After that, you will see a table. And there are, you can decide how many entries you want to see at a time. Minimum is 50, I think. Yeah, 50, 100 or all of them. Here you will find that search box that searches the entire table. So whatever terms you want to look for, you can search for it. There's no guarantee that you will find that particular word in this table, because that word may not be here, but it might be in the topic. So just be aware of that. And you can search each column individually. So you can go here and type in format. You might want to look at all the video resources available. So you can just type video and press enter, and all the video resources will be shown on top. So in fact, let's try that. So when I press enter, so in about 2 years' time, it will show you a new set of, there you go. See, all the video resources are now shown at the top of the table. Likewise, if I want to look for interactives, I can type interactive or interactives, either way. Net connections are very slow. There we go. So now you have all the interactives are being shown as a collection. Yeah. So you can. So what this table has is, in the very first column, it has the title that is already linked to this resource. Therefore, it's a hot link. And in the second column, you have some basic comments that suggest what the resource is about. In some cases, they have given a summary themselves, in which case I've just copied and pasted the summary in that column with quotation marks around it, because that's not my writing, that's their writing. And the format, of course, we have web, interactive, video, text, and all these kinds of things. And topics are they're rather like keywords. And there are two other columns: the date on which this resource was added to this table, and the date it was verified. The reason for this is that some of these links will not work after a time because the addresses might change, the website may disappear. These things happen a lot online. So as of the date, for example, if you look at this particular item, global wind patterns, BLIAC, and this is verified as of that date. So on 11th June 2020, we found that the site was there and it was working. There is no guarantee. There is no guarantee that it will continue to exist indefinitely. We're sure of that. So that information is given so that you are aware that if the link doesn't work, possibly since the time it was verified and the time that you are checking, that site might have disappeared. It's entirely possible. So we are also dealing with this very temporal nature, impermanent nature of resources online. So let me start with a few examples that I've opened up. So this is one of my favorite, and I've used it with children a lot. Let me just check something here. I'll stop sharing and start sharing again. Okay. So I'm going to play a little bit of this video. What I want you to look for, this is a 2-hour video. And using videos in teaching is a very tricky thing to do. The one thing that I would recommend that you never do is simply show the video and say, okay, fine, let's get on with it. Generally, a 2-hour video, when I show it to children, turns into double the time, because every 15 minutes or so we stop, we take stock of what we have learned in the last 15 minutes, how it ties to geography, what other responses participants might have. All of these things happen as well. So my recommendation is, whatever length of time that a video is for, please budget twice the amount if you're going to use it to teach. Twice the amount of time. So here what I want you to notice is, very early on, after all the opening razzmatazz is all done, they raise two very, very provocative questions, asking us to think about what might be the connections between two sets of things. Listen, observe, and see what those two sets of connections are asking us to think about. So let me play that for you.
Our planet, Earth. You may think you know it well, but a startling new picture is emerging of a world shaped by forces more dynamic and intertwined than we ever imagined, raising possibilities that defy common sense. How can sandstorms in the Sahara Desert transform the Amazon rainforest over 5,000 miles away? In the frigid ocean beneath Antarctica, how can a vast undersea waterfall 500 times bigger than Niagara Falls lead to a gigantic feeding frenzy near the equator? And how can warm water streaming past the coast of Africa trigger a weather catastrophe half a world away in the southern United States?
So, as we started, I mentioned the 4 questions of geography. Here are 3 examples where you can easily apply those 4 questions and look at what it means, all the way down to the daily lives of people. So, this is one resource that I really highly recommend. In fact, you can take each one of those questions as one unit, look at them, pause, and then discuss them and continue over a period of time. One of the other things also is that this is all not based on simply people's speculation. This is all based on satellite data gathered by NASA and the European Space Agency. Those data they have compiled and they have processed them using various software to animate them. And so this is all data-based, not simply speculation. It's data-based, it's been shown how these connections work. And that is ultimately the power of this kind of documentary in teaching geography. And mind you, if you're looking at this kind of resource, if you don't bring it to the level of the children's lives, it won't make any difference. And this can be done. So an imaginative teacher can easily do that. Yeah. So let me go to another resource. Very interesting as well. This is called the Worldometer, very popular these days. And you will see here in this case, let me just reload this page. It gives you world population in real time. So just there you go. So do you observe how this current world population is updating itself very rapidly? So you can also go down here and look at government and economics, public healthcare expenditure worldwide. Or if you click on the plus icon, it gives you some information where the information comes, where the data comes. The sources of data are very important. Earlier, we need to make sure that you saw that. So any number of things. So blog posts written today, 3.3 million blog posts and counting. So the environment, all sorts of data are available here, and they're all related to the world at the global scale. But you also have in the population category, yeah, you can also look at basic facts about population. It has reached 7 billion on October 31st, 2011. So this is a very useful resource in getting children to look at data about the world through which to get some sense of the world, but also to be skeptical about the data. We have to trace where the data come from, and that has an enormous amount of meaning. For example, right now in India, places are going under lockdown, lockdown is being lifted, restrictions are being imposed willy-nilly, all supposedly based on data. But we don't know how many cases there are because we don't have widespread testing yet. Unless we have close to 100% of the population tested, we won't know how many COVID positive cases we have. But yet here we are every day in the morning, they show so many more cases have come, so many people have died because of COVID. those data are not complete because the data are coming, a lot of the data are coming from self-reporting. That is not the way to gather this kind of data. And recently, a data scientist from the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore remarked that the nationwide data are being handled by a civil servant and a pediatrician, neither of whom has any kind of training in data science. So we're in deep trouble. So these are the kinds of things that we need to be alerting our children to. A disciplinary approach gives us that kind of insight. Subject approach will not give us. The subject approach will say, this is the number and we get on with it. A disciplinary approach will get you to ask questions. Where are the data coming from? Why should we believe this data? Could they be accurate? Those kinds of things. Yeah? Just to be clear also, from about 11:45, I'll open the floor for questions. So we'll have time for some Q&A as well. So then here is, I believe at the ICSE and some CBSE level, study of maps is a part of the syllabus. Whether it's a part of the syllabus or not, maps are communication devices in geography. So here is a site that gives you what are the parts of a map? How do we read a map? So this is a good beginning. We also need to understand how maps are distortions of reality. There is no such thing as a 100% true map. All maps are liars. They lie all the time. And when you tell children this, some of them react with, they start laughing. But some of them get a little alarmed. What are you supposed to believe? There is a lovely question there. That takes a lot of discussion to sort through that. But I won't go into all that because we don't have time. Okay. So one of the things that happens, a map is basically a flat representation of a three-dimensional Earth. And when we make that kind of change from three-dimensional globe to a flat surface, something or the other is going to get distorted. We cannot have 100% accurate representation. So one of the ways in which we convert that globe into a flat surface, that process is called projection. One of the ways in which we project Earth leads to a very interesting set of circumstances, which I'll show you now. So this is called the Mercator projection, and it's very widely used. It has some uses, but not everybody can find it useful. You will notice here is here is the equator passing through the northern part of South America and through the central part of Africa, through Malaysia, Indonesia, and so on. And then you look at the size of countries. Look at the size of Greenland here. Huge country, phenomenally huge country. But that's actually the result of the distortion that this particular method of projecting causes. So if I were to now say, select Greenland, so Greenland is selected. If I want to get the most accurate size of Greenland, it should be, if I bring it to the equator, I will see the actual size of Greenland. Okay? Which is exactly what I will do. What I'll do is I'll bring Greenland to Africa. Notice what happens to its size as I slowly drag it down towards the equator. So now that's the true size of Greenland. Amazing, right? So you can fit, I don't know, 10, 20 of these Greenlands probably inside Africa. It's a very small country. But because of the way the map is prepared, Greenland looks like it's really, really huge. So let me clear that. Let me select Russia next, just to give you a couple of examples. Okay, here is Russia. Way up in the northern latitudes, way up in the northern latitudes. It became bigger because I pushed it further north. So let me bring it towards Australia, towards Africa. Notice how it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller as I bring it to Africa. See this? That is the true size of Russia. So on this thing, you get a a small box that pops up and tells you, gives you the flag of Russia and tells you total size in square kilometers is 17,098,242 square kilometers. And for our American and get over the British imperial system, they give it in square miles also. So something like this, if we give access to children to this kind of resource, they can sit there and spend hours together discovering how a map distorts information. So this is a very useful resource for teaching maps, projections, and the sizes of countries. And from there, one can look at what does the size of a country mean for its development. So we talk about, for example, in the economics part of social sciences, we might be talking about GDP. So when you're talking about GDP, what does the size of a country have to do with the GDP of the country? Do bigger countries necessarily have bigger GDPs? If you say per capita GDP, then does a bigger country necessarily have higher per capita GDP? Do small countries, if a country is very small, does it mean people have very small per capita GDP? So if you take, there's this tiny little country called Brunei, tiny little country, one city, that's it. It's an oil-rich country. The per capita GDP there is one of the highest in the world. So then from there you can get to questions of social justice. When we say per person, this is the GDP, that's the wealth. Does that mean that everybody gets that wealth? How is the wealth distributed? That is another question to look at, because the equity, the equality wealth distribution within a country is never uniform, which is why now from there, if you look at what people do about it, example of America right now, enormous turmoil going on because of economic inequality based on race. So these are all very useful tools, both as starting points for discussions of social science topics and on how to use communication devices. You can do a lot of mischief with maps. I'm not going into that here. There's a whole book called How to Lie with Maps, written by a cartographer. Brilliant book. So there are any number of ways people manipulate maps to manipulate public opinion. The colors we choose to represent a country can be a political statement. So these are very powerful devices. The aspects that textbooks deal with are merely the technical aspects. That's it. What do colors mean? What do these lines mean? How do you show this? How do you show the distribution of that? But the psychological elements, the political elements, the sociological elements that go into the making of a map, into the use of a map, that the discipline tells you, not the textbook, not the subject. Okay, so let us look at this interesting thing here. This map lets you plug in your address to see how it's changed over the past 750 million years. We teach about this plate tectonics. It is the most boring stuff. I find it boring and I love geography. So what if we could give children some activity and say, 750 million years ago, you are from, let us say, New Delhi. 750 million years ago, where would Delhi have been if it had existed? And then watch it move along with the plates to where it is today. So let me see if I can actually find that link here and connect to it. So let the map load, and here I'll, okay, here I load the city I'm living in now, biased, slightly biased, Mysore, Karnataka, India. Okay, so there you can see the red dot where it is now, that is currently. So if I jump to the point where, just give me a second. Okay, if I go here, I can select how far back in time I want to go. So I'll go all the way to 750 million years. Notice what happens. This was well before the tectonic movements really got underway. And there are these superimposed boundaries all over the place to show you where the countries would have been at that time. And that's where Mysore would have been 750 million years ago. And if I then go here and say, what about 600 million years ago? That's where it has moved. And I keep going like that, step by step by step. There is supposed to be a play button somewhere here, which I'm not able to find. I don't know. So like this, you can look at different time periods and see where Mysore was so many years ago. Look at this. And you can begin to see the outline of India somewhere here, 240 million years ago. And let's go to 120 million years. And you begin to see a proto-India being separated out there. And then we go to 35 million years ago. And by now, India has already come and bumped into the Asia plate. The Himalayas have started forming. The Tibetan plateau started rising. And from 35 million years ago, let's go to 20 million years ago. So the northern part of the Indian plate has gone further under the Asian plate, and the Himalayas have risen in height. And this is the current location of Mysore. Yeah. So these are very interesting things through which they can understand what plate tectonics actually mean. That is something that a textbook cannot teach, because the textbook is not animated. This is animated. Okay, so let me close some of this so we can save memory. Elements of a map we looked at. We looked at the true size of things. Here is another one. It's a huge effort. I've had a lot of teachers tell me it's so difficult to teach about latitudes and longitudes, about seasons. And then you have this model with which you have a light bulb or maybe a torchlight, and then you're rotating things. Huge drama goes on. And at the end, you still cannot see the actual pattern of light that varies and gives us the seasons and how those are related to latitude. That part of it is in the textbook through static diagrams. Here we have so you might be able to see that when Earth is at June solstice, this was last Sunday, the Arctic Circle is fully lit, 24 hours sunlight. The Antarctic Circle and further down towards the pole is completely in the dark. Yeah. So imagine how you can use this. When I use this, I do a whole workshop using this for children. You can talk about the connections between latitude, Earth's revolution, and seasons, and connect them to the death of Bhishma after the Kurukshetra war. You can connect them to architecture, especially temples in India where on the day of that solstice, sunlight falls directly on the main sanctum. You can talk about Christmas and the variations of Christmas with latitude. You can talk about Ramzan, how practicing fasting during Ramzan varies with latitude, depending on the time of the year when Ramzan occurs. You can talk about clothing, the foods that we eat. Life itself can be connected to poetry, art. All of these things can be connected to this one animation. And I can tell you from practical experience, kids really, really get it. They love it, they actually get it, and they're able to make those connections. So all of these are available online. Again, my suggestion is if something like this is something you like, try and see if you can download it. I think you might be able to. But be sure that when you use it, make sure that you give credit to where the source is. So then let me take you to another resource here, which is basically a search results page on Google. There are any number of podcasts, geography podcasts, and some of them are very, very interesting. So these are simply audio files that are online that you can play and listen to. So you can easily get children to perhaps even make their own podcast on a geography topic. This will help them learn their language skills, communication skills, technical skills. Technical skills they already have. Most children have them. Just show them one or two things and they run with it. So you can end up using these things for not just teaching geography, but a whole lot of other things as well. Other social sciences plus life skills. Here I have a search on the website about climate change and its impacts. One of the biggest impacts of climate change is climate change related migration. That is a very huge topic that textbooks don't seem to do anything about, and if they do, it's dismissed in a paragraph or two. But these are things that really give you actual life stories, case studies, which can help children understand what climate change means. These are the kinds of resources with which the American president needs to be taught, but he doesn't learn. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a teacher, nor is he open to learning. Okay. Likewise, one of the difficult topics that teachers tell me that they have trouble teaching is about global winds. Okay. Just watch how this develops. With this, you can talk about, you can bring geography and physics together. You can bring in geography and climate, of course. You can bring in geography and human life. You can bring in geography and ecosystems. Geography and how other non-human species live. All of these things we can show. So at the mid-tropics, you see how the trade winds work, how the easterlies and westerlies work, all of these things animated and very, very clearly shown. Textbooks cannot do this because they're static. Okay. And then you look at the upper atmosphere airflow, and you see these huge jet streams. One at the tropical level, that's called the intertropical convergence zone. There is another animation I'm going to find and add to this database that helps us understand how the monsoons work. I'll put that up there later on. So these are all things that are available as animations. And you can look at the current issue going on right now. And it's all epidemics, all pandemics are subjects of study for geographers and geography.
5 minutes lecture.
Hello? Yeah. Please mute your mic for a while longer. This shows us the occurrence of COVID in different parts of India. It's focusing specifically on India. And the bigger the dot, the more the number of cases. And then you can look at the patterns. How are things distributed on the surface of Earth I started with? So if you look at this, where are the biggest dots? The biggest dots are in big cities. Mumbai, Chennai, two of the biggest places. And then you have smaller and smaller dots, and every small dot, you put the cursor there, it tells you how many cases, latest information. The data are questionable, as I told you earlier. They are questionable, but nevertheless, they give us some kind of indication at least. So this is a good tool to teach children how to look at spatial distribution of data. This is geographic data. And it also gives them a chance to learn how to look at a graph and interpret a graph. But always, always question the source of the information. Don't take anything at face value just because it's online in an animation. Okay. So, and there are several such resources online. You can find them in the resource table I showed you earlier. So finally, something which may be fun for them, it may not be fun, I don't know. So long as we make this not a competitive thing, it can be fun. If we set them to say, okay, do it in 5 minutes, let's see, that ruins it completely. Let them take their time and do it. There are crossword puzzles, word search puzzles, quizzes, and so on. There are 12 of them so far, varying degrees of complexity and so on. I'll just show you one example. It's not simply a quiz. There's always some background information. This one was called Amrita Varshini, which is also the name of a raga in Karnataka Sangeetam. So it starts off with talking about this raga called Amrita Varshini and the recording of a song composed by an 18th century composer praying for rain. Yeah. So then there is a link to the India Met Department satellite image. If you click on that, it will take you to the latest image that's available on their site. And then you come to the crossword puzzle. You start, there are clues here and they can fill things out. Okay. So with that, I've gone over by 6 minutes and 6 minutes. I was supposed to stop at 45. With that, let me close this down. I'll stop the sharing. All right. So if any of you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat window. You will not be able to read a lot of these things because in transmission, the screen sharing makes the font smaller. When you go to the actual resource sites, you'll be able to read them quite well. I just wanted to merely indicate where things are. Yeah? Screen writings, as I said, that's because of the quality of the network connections. There's nothing I can do about it. Okay. Any other questions? All right. In which case, thank you all for. Thank you all for joining us, joining me this morning, and happy explorations to you, especially if you're doing the exploration with children. I'm sure you will. You'll find it very, very rewarding. Let me give you all the resources. I'm not sharing any resources by mail. It's all on the website. So just go to. I'll give you the address here again.
Can we ask?
Yes, absolutely. Just give me a moment. Okay, that's the address to go to. From there, you can find your way around. Please go ahead.
So I'm so glad because we are into alternative education and we start with geology. We never started with geography from the kindergarten.
Okay.
So your resource is really going to help and give us the right motivation to take it forward, because we also do without books and think we just need that. Should we officially write and take permission so that we can put your link on our website, sir?
Absolutely. Whatever is on our website is all open to use. Please do. I would very much love for everyone to use it. So by all means, please do.
Thank you.
Where are you located? In Mumbai, right?
Mumbai. We are in Mumbai. We are dealing with NGO and we have all these models of landforms and all. I think you are aware about the Montessori approach.
Correct.
There are many.
In fact, you're in good company. There are lots of Montessorians online today, right now.
Yes. And we follow that. So we are very glad. And also Ross Handlings, I think from Sweden, uses a lot of geography to develop economics, his models and all. I'm so glad an Indian like you has really contributed, and we will try to spread a lot with our parents.
Please do. That's the only way it spreads, because
also join your courses, sir. Our children will also join your courses. We'll insist on having a lecture.
Please send me an email if you have any ideas that you would like to express. Send me an email and we'll see what we can do together.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Really appreciate, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. I just want to mention to you also that Mrs. Vidya Shankar, who is here, she's the one with whom I'm collaborating to offer that The Power of Place 3-year certificate course for children. There are 5 children, I think, right now registered for the course. We're starting on the 30th of June. So that's a new venture that we are.
Can our whole school register, sir? Can our school register?
Yeah, we can do that. Let's talk about it. What I'm trying to do is to use the remaining months of this year, 2020, to discuss to kind of see how it works, because this is the first time we're doing it. We want to see how it works. We're kind of making a tag team where I am teaching them online, and Vidya teaches them either online or in person in China, depending on the coronavirus situation. So she'll be teaching them the assignment kind of things. I'll be teaching them whatever I can. So between the two of us, we are going to cover a very interesting course we have started. So we will have some idea of the pitfalls and the comfort levels and so on by the end of this year. So after this year, maybe from January to 2021, we can start looking at offering this course for other schools and so forth. Yes, we will need to have somebody at the host institution who can take that part of the job and run with it with the children. They'll have to do it on site.
Thank you, sir.
Okay? So do get in touch with me. Let's.
We don't have Vidyaji's number. We don't have Vidya. How do we contact? Or we contact you only, sir?
So just ask her for email. Vidyaji, can you give your contact information to them in the chat window?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. Just hang on.
They can. Yeah.
Yeah.
They can get in touch with you as well.
Correct. I have, oh, sorry. I
And
sent
what was
the,
the book, sir? We would like to order that book also.
yeah,
Geography.
the link is in the, on the website. It's now available as an ebook also.
Yeah, we wanted the
Uh,
hard copy.
you wanted the hard copy?
Huh.
Yeah. Hard copy will take a little time. You can order that also. Hard copy comes from Mysore. I'll be sending it out.
Okay. So that
So,
site is okay, no, to put money and all that site Pochi or something. It's
yeah,
very
yeah, yeah,
site. It was.
yeah. Absolutely. They're a kosher company.
Okay.
I think so. I have not given them any money. So, well, actually, I have. I did pay them money for doing some work for us. So, yeah, they're dependable. They're a genuine company. So soon, I'm hoping soon we'll be able to sell the ebook on Amazon as well, Amazon in and Amazon.com. But yeah. And I would also recommend for those of you who might be teaching geography as part of social sciences, one of the things that I had the privilege of learning is from one of our guests here today, Dr. Srinivasan, who did a workshop on GDP and its variation around the world. Very interesting workshop on how geography and GDP are connected. So that is something you might want to talk to him about and see if he can share some ideas with you on how to connect the two. For example, what does it mean for geography education, for GDP, if a country has a coast or does not have a coast? Those kinds of things. So please do get in touch with him. Dr. Srinivasan, are you here?
He's not here. He just left.
Oh, he just left. Oh, he might have had another thing. I'll give you his email address in just a moment. Any geography resources in Kannada? At the moment, the blog is the only resource I have. I'm hoping to have webinars in Kannada in the near future, which is something I'll announce as soon as I have the material organized. The problem with geography resources in Kannada is that whatever I make, I need somebody to make them with me, because the language is a big issue, not in terms of my fluency with it. I'm very fluent with it. The technical language of geography up to about 10th standard, we can somehow manage, but we cannot translate higher order concepts. For the kinds of teaching I do, I need that kind of vocabulary. I don't work with textbooks. So if you're working with a textbook, please let me know. I'd be happy to work with you and we can develop some Kannada resources for geography, Kannada medium resources. Very happy to do that. Okay, let me just give me a moment. Let me get Dr. Srinivasan's address for you. I have it right here. So, now, Dr. Srinivasan is a professor of economics at NCERT Delhi. Let me see if I can find his address. So, while I'm looking for it, are there any other questions? Okay, cool. In which case, we are done exactly on the dot at noon. We have finished. Thank you all again for joining. So just please wait for just 1 second. I'll give you Dr. Srinivasan's email address. He's an amazing teacher as well, and very committed to improving social science education in the classroom and to bring about the integration of social sciences, not only among each other, among themselves, but with life itself, really. All connections are slow. So anything I ask this thing to do, it takes 2 years to do it. Okay, here we go. Okay, here is Dr. Srinivasan's name. He is a professor of economics in NCERT Delhi. One of the most interesting people I've come across, and a very dedicated academic. So please do get in touch with him if you would like to look at connections between economics and geography that he has explored. Last year, he gave us a wonderful workshop for children on connecting geography and GDP. So thank you all very much for joining me this morning. I'm very happy to have shared whatever little I could with you. And if you need any further help in any way, by all means, please do contact me. I believe I gave you my address earlier, but I'll give it to you again here. That's my address. geo@text.in. Okay. Thank you all very much.
I'll be mailing you right away.
All right. Goodbye. See you.